everybody. Welcome to Dat Fury Radio. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. This is One Question. My guest and friend, Cory Kibler. What's going on, Cory?
Hello, Howie. Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
I'm stoked you're here. This is actually our first recording session for Dat Fury. We just recorded the teaser, little peek behind the curtain here. And we'll be banking one more after this. But, one question format. I'm going to reveal something to you that I don't think you know about my songwriting and inspiration. And, like, this is a very deep and very kind of silly part of my whole process that I don't think we've ever talked about. Are you prepared?
Don't know. I'm intrigued. Certainly.
Okay.
There's no denying it. And I like that you said peek behind the curtain, and we both have curtains behind us. It looks
We're curtained up.
like right now. So that's great. Yeah, I'm a little spooked, but I'm excited.
So there's this Tenacious D skit where Jack Black is trying to get Kyle going, and he's saying something along the lines of, I'm going to say kick it, and you're going to kick it. You're going to kick it with a tasty groove. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's kick it. I'll say kick it, and you'll just kick it with a tasty groove, okay? 1, 2, 3, kick it. Kick it. Come on. God damn it. God, Kyle! Could you one time kick it?
So when I have an idea, or I'm trying to write something, or I'm trying to record something, or I'm doing a demo, honestly, just about every time, very early in the process, I'm thinking to myself, am I kicking it? Am I kicking it with a tasty groove?
Mm-hmm.
And the question for you, for one question, is, did you know that about me?
No, absolutely not. That is probably the last thing I would have guessed that you were thinking. Not that you, it's funny because if I really look at the music that you're writing and putting out, it is now that I'm thinking about it, very heavily groove oriented. Certainly the 808 stuff and even the night mode stuff, but even I think about something like Fight Songs. And it's a lot of, mostly 4/4 rock and roll and some ballad stuff in there too. But there's always I think you're very hook oriented, especially musically, because you're always doing a little riff, some color, and then it's there's a ton of call and response in what you're doing. So it totally makes sense. But no, I would have I'm not sure what I would have thought you were telling yourself early on in the songwriting process. Maybe don't mess this up. or uh-oh, whoops, another record.
There's that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, another one. I think I would guess that you probably sit down a lot, and your goal is, I'm just going to goof around. I have 5 minutes to kill before I have to be someplace. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I've got a song going.
Yeah, it's mostly even more accidental than that. And it's guitar stuff and 404 stuff where I'm kind of taking this as a maxim or as a mantra. It's not so much with the synth, though. I mean, when you spend so much time in tasty groove land or attempting to find tasty groove land, inevitably that's going to leak over into, anything else that you're making. But yeah, good. I was hoping to surprise and even shock you with how seriously that joke skit has influenced my music. It's kind of like a headier way of putting that. My choir teacher and feels weird to say friend now, but Mr. Morris, Mike Morris, Scott's dad, who was our choir teacher, kind of late, maybe my junior or senior year, he got really into this this mantra of all music must dance. And the idea that even with our choral music and we're just, sitting or standing for the most part or whatever, but like finding that groove, finding that backbeat, finding the swing, finding the motion, just always down and clapping on the one is not the groove. It is not a tasty groove.
Yeah. I can see it. Like I've heard ballads with groove, like plenty of them. Totally get that. I meant to say 404 earlier. I said 808, but 808 has groove too, I think. It's interesting also because I know that the band that Howie and I were in with Jamie Shacker, like Jamie is super groove oriented too. Like, I don't know if it's just playing bass or whatever, but all his songs start with like a riff of some kind. It's always got like a really hooky, tasty groove, and that's like the back. And it's interesting because if I work with him to write a song based on that, it is the complete opposite of how I approach a song. Like any coloring or riffs are like, that's later. First for me is just like, what's the melody and what are the chords that go with it? So throwing in the groove is like an afterthought or something. It's important, but it's not the first thing I think of. So then when I wrote a song for Shaka or Sleepover, when we played that, I feel like I would write something that was fairly straightforward, and then you and Jamie and Scott would add a ton of groove to it. Like I think about when we did the version of Island of Terror, and you made it like a reggae song, which was like not even a little bit what I expected when we got together to practice that first time, but it like totally worked, and it made it a lot less like stilted or something like that.
Yeah, and that particular one, I'll have to see if I can maybe dig that up and put that in the background here, but the reggae groove is kind of implied by your riff not starting on the one, right? Because that riff is one. Da 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 one. Da da. And so, resting on that one just kind of naturally heads in that direction. I wanted to, before I forget, I want to compliment Jamie, and he's always been very brave about going outside the scale, going outside of convention, and finding weird grooves, and when it works, it's really, really, really great.
It is cool. I've noticed that, especially like I think we talked about this before. I've become really, really, really impressed with his like his decision of when to play and when to get weird. I feel like it's a little bit more, I don't know, like when we were all starting out in college, we were kind of all over the place. And I think like when you're at that age, you just are going to use like effects pedals just because you can, or you'll kind of go nuts on every song, or at least I did. I
still do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's interesting now when we recorded that like demos record, he would do weird, unconventional stuff that I don't anticipate, but it's almost like it's more space based than clutter based or something. Like the weird thing about what he does now is the notes you think he should play but that he doesn't or something, and coming in on the half in a weird, I don't know, I'm always like, well, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it takes a great imagination to even think to do that.
Yeah.
In a way, right? And it takes some guts not to shy away from it the first time you hit that, and you're like, wait, is that right? It's the kind of thing that the first time is a mistake, the second time is
totally
art.
Yeah. I don't have that same, like, I like to do weird, I like to put in weird notes and maybe a weird little rhythm. Like if I can find that, I think of it as like the pavement note where you have a song and it's, straightforward in a lot of ways, but then for some reason there's just a stupid note right in the middle of like a riff that matches up with the melody somehow. I mean, but kind of doesn't also. And I love being able to hit that, like the thing that's unexpected and weird, but that still works. But it's not my natural go-to. It's like, that's something I have to like intentionally kind of throw in after I've written a much more straightforward song. But I think, when he writes a bass line, I think he just plays it over and over and over and over and over again until it's like as weird as he wants it or something. So I don't know. I mean, like when you sit down at the 404 to mess around, like, I don't know if this works with a 404, but with a guitar, there's almost like a certain chord progression or an exercise I kind of do every time, like when I sit down with it, just to like start myself off. Like, is there a first position for a 404?
Different individuals might have one, but I don't think there's one like inherent to the device itself. Tell me more about your guitar, what you do when you sit down.
So,
I don't know about this. You haven't said this to me before.
Yeah. So usually if I just sit down, I have a few minutes. It's almost like just to get my fingers loosened up or something. I will do like, I'll just kind of make up a riff in a major or minor scale, somewhere on the fretboard. And maybe I just do like a straightforward scale or something, but it's just to like remind myself of, I don't know, whatever. And then I end up playing like a lot of jazz chords just because they're like fun or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like the scale is just, an exercise to get me into it, but also like my hands are not big. And so jazz chords and scales make me have to like, you know what I mean? Like stretch them out or something like that. I should probably be playing like a 3/4 size guitar. Just a little guy.
It'd be fun. And they make all kinds of different, nice, different guitars, like, in different sizes anymore.
It'd be cool. I just, mostly it's a struggle if there's a lot of songs where there's a chord spread out over like 4 frets or something. Like if I go through a few of those progressions, I'm like cramping up. But anyway, that's usually what I do. But I wondered if, when you sat down at the 404, like there was like a certain, I'm going to start with this drum.
Well, I mean, I have an intention when I sit down, but I don't like warm up or anything. And, I think probably without exception, all of the material I've done, we're talking about the Roland SP404 and SP404 Mark II samplers. Well, let's set to this side where I'm like doing effects on a track that's basically finished. Mm-hmm. Like the album I did with Royce, Not One Person Left Out. Those synth tracks were done completely off the 404 and were finished. So it's just like that song is done and the whole song is a sample.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes long or whatever, and then I'm adding effects and Royce's voice and stuff. So that's actually that kind of fits into the first category. So the first category is I have an idea for a sample.
Okay.
And it might be a full song I'm going to put effects on, or it might just be, well, let's take the theme song for Dat Fury Radio, which I just did last weekend. Like I spent all weekend making the samples for that. It was 2 guitar chords, right? And it's the first thing you hear at the top of the episode. And I knew I love the long play theme, but it was not written as a theme. It was just a synth piece I had kind of lying around that wasn't attached to an album or anything, and I just grabbed it because we didn't think ahead like all that much. And I love it, but it goes through all these kind of like pseudo key changes or chord changes, and I don't like cutting it off too much. Like there's not a good spot that doesn't feel right to cut it off. So the outro theme is like quite long. So I knew for this podcast, like I was a little more functional, and I was thinking about, okay, I want something simple and short that I can arrange, and have be the length that I want it to be, and not worry about like cutting it off in the middle. So that's a piece where I had a sample as a starting point, 2 guitar chords. Right. So I find my tempo, I record those 2 guitar chords. I mean, I do several takes, find the one I want, make my sample, and then it's all like just adding additional layers and samples on top of it, right? So that's one method of like having a starting sample in mind. The other method I do is where I actually have a demo, and this is stuff I usually sing into my voice memo in the middle of the night or first thing when I wake up in the morning from a dream. Sometimes in the middle of the day, but it's usually a half awake type of thing.
Sure.
And so the starting point is recreating that demo with basic like kick snare, maybe hi-hat, but I usually have like a kick snare pattern and a bass line or something, and so it's using that and recreating that as the initial sequence. Really, it might involve some samples, making some samples and making a sequence and making that initial loop and then building up from there.
There we go. Yeah, I was wondering about that. So like, right, something, right, you're already working on something, or you have a fleshed out idea in your head, and then there's like a rougher demo. I was thinking like, right, the kick snare, maybe hi-hat, like that seems like the place, like the default, I guess, place to start when you're putting together a brand new idea from your voice memos or something like that.
Yeah. But I never, and lots of people do this, but I have so many ideas, I don't do this, but lots of people will sit down and just like make a little house beat or something, or hip hop beat or whatever they like, and start building from there with not knowing where it's headed, right? Mm-hmm. And that sounds fun, but I'm always just working through my backlog of ideas I already have.
Yeah, totally.
To where I never really sit down and just freeform it. I do that with synthesizers, like Only Mostly Dead. That record is basically just like walking up to the MS-20 and fiddling around and twisting knobs until both a sound and some type of melody or line or something to play kind of emerged, and then developing it and recording it, and for the most part being done with it within an hour, So with the synthesizers, I do just walk up to them and fiddle, and that's
cool to be able to do that.
That's fun. Maybe this is we're at a kind of a good length, but I have been wanting to ask you one more question, and this kind of leads right in. So like, you had a little fiddle with Arturia Micro Freak the other week, right? How did that go?
It was really, really cool. So every time, oh man, Logic Pro, is that
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the software we were using, and there were a few different keyboards, but one of the ones that my friend Mike got was the Micro Freak, and it's so funny. It's like this cute little, like keyboard, whatever, synthesizer with like this cool, I don't know, like retro psychedelic pattern on it or something like that. But it's just like, it just does a zillion things, and there's a zillion different like options for whatever. Like I think for my friend Mike, when he starts using something like that, it's like the fact that the possibilities are endless. That's like the fun part. You know what I mean? Mm. Like digging in and just going through all these like plugins and stuff, and just seeing like what he can do and what he's into, and just trying different stuff out until it sounds cool. It's fun for me to do stuff like that almost when somebody else has like filtered it down or something. Or if I don't know, if I'm not actually trying to finish something, if I'm just making noise for fun, like you're doing on the synthesizer that you were talking about, then it's more fun. But if I were working on a beat and I sort of knew what kind of vibe I was after, but I didn't know quite what sound I was after, I think I could sit there for like 2 hours looking for the right thing and never find it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I think we talked about this before, like option paralysis. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, it's
how did you find
cool.
like the actual physical keyboard itself? Because the Microfreak has that capacitive touch keyboard that's not like a piano.
No, it's not. It's like right. Well, I didn't know it was called that, but yeah, that's it. That's what it is. Yeah, it's super cool. It's weird. It's not like anything else I've like messed with, right? Because it doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't feel like playing keys.
Did it kind of free you up, so you don't feel like you have to like play a C major chord or play Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever?
For the most part, anything with keys does feel pretty good about that. So like, or feel pretty good in that sense because I don't like, I know how to make a basic major chord shape on a piano, but that's it. So because of that, when I start messing around on keys, it's way more wide open than it is when I sit down with a guitar. Like I have all my guitar chord shapes, not all, but like most of them that I would use kind of like in my mind. But with keys, like it's just laid out, in order. And so anytime I'm using something like that or like a keyboard, I'm a lot more free with like my chords and melodies and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. It's less worried about doing it right, which makes it more fun.
For sure. That's I love that. Let's end it there. Don't worry too much about getting it right. Just have fun. Get it
I'm
done.
down. Get it done.
Cory
Keep
Kibler.
crushing it.
Keep crushing it. This has been Dat Fury Radio. We'll be back at you next week.
Bye.